The alien admiral's voice cracked over the comms. Do not corner them. Never corner a human! But by then, it was far too late. The trap had already snapped shut, and it wasn't the humans inside it. The first thing the galaxy learned about humans was that they smiled too much. The second? They smiled most when things were about to get ugly. 15 seconds in, you would have thought Admiral Vorth of the Zaldar Dominion had trapped a frail newcomer species. His fleet of 34 warships held formation around a single human cruiser drifting near the neutral border. Every scanner confirmed the human ship was outgunned, outdated, and doomed. It should have been simple. Except the human officer on the bridge screen was smiling. Admiral Vorth's mandibles clicked. You have nowhere to run. Engines disabled. Surrounded. State your surrender, human. The officer leaned forward, resting his chin on one hand, casual as if he were at a cafe back on Earth. His uniform was neat but unthreatening, a navy jacket with polished brass buttons. His voice came calm, almost warm. Well, Admiral, I'd surrender. Really, I would, but that would ruin the surprise. The bridge fell silent. The crew exchanged wary glances. Surprise? What surprise? Their fleet had cornered him. Vorth's tail lashed. Do not attempt humor. You are finished. The human adjusted his sleeve. Oh, I wasn't joking. It's just, you've mistaken trap for contained. And those are very different things. The alien crew hissed in confusion. To them, humans were still pre-warp children, recently crawled into the stars. Their war records were few, their ships unremarkable. The Dominion had crushed empires older and far stronger. Humans were supposed to fold quickly, perhaps even beg. But this one kept smiling. Lieutenant Carr, you whispered. Admiral, he appears calm. That is not normal prey behavior. Prey? The human chuckled as if overhearing. That's adorable. My mother called me lots of things, but never that. Vorth bristled. You cannot win against 34 warships. Win? The human's eyes glinted. Oh, Admiral, you're assuming we came here to win. Humans don't start games they can't finish. We start games that make sure you lose. Vorth forced himself to remain steady. He recognized psychological tactics, empty bravado meant to buy time. Yet something about the man's calm unsettled him. The Dominion excelled at intimidation. They cornered worlds until hope collapsed. But here was a lone human tactician turning the tables with words. Name yourself, Vorth demanded. The man straightened, polite as ever. Commander Elias Rhodes, Terran Navy. Pleased to meet you under such cozy circumstances. I'd shake your hand, but... He gestured vaguely at the holographic projection. You seem a bit hostile. The crew hissed again, this time from unease. There was no desperation in him, no plea. Only a sense that he was waiting, for what, they could not guess. Outside, the stars glittered against the void. 34 Dominion ships hung in perfect orbit around the crippled human cruiser, weapons primed. By all logic, this was the end of the humans' foray into Dominion space. Yet every instinct in Vorth's hardened military mind screamed caution. Commander, Vorth growled, do not mistake patience for mercy. You will reveal your assets. Rhodes smirked. Assets? Admiral, I'm flattered you think we brought them. Something in the phrasing made Carr flinch. We brought them. Not I brought them. Not the fleet brought them. Present tense. As if invisible company lingered in the shadows. Vorth's claws tapped against the command chair. Scanners show nothing. Do not bluff. Oh, you're absolutely right, Rhodes said brightly. Scanners won't help you. Humans are particular about how we show up to a fight. Little trick we learned back on Earth, never reveal your hand until the other guy bets everything. The crew muttered uneasily. They'd studied humans, primitive history, scattered conflicts, nothing impressive. Yet patterns emerged. They were stubborn, unpredictable, and absurdly lucky. Empires underestimated them and regretted it. But the Dominion was no mere empire. They were rulers of 8 sectors, conquerors of dozens of species. And still, Admiral Vortha's instinct snagged like claws on stone. Your ship is disabled, he pressed. You are surrounded. What hope do you cling to? Rhodes' voice softened, suddenly polite, almost apologetic. Hope? Admiral, forgive me, humans don't cling to hope. We prepare. And when someone corners us… He paused, smile sharpening like a blade behind velvet. We don't escape the trap. We become the trap. The bridge temperature seemed to drop. Vortha's second-in-command inhaled sharply. Around them, scanners pinged with static interference, nothing conclusive, but unsettling nonetheless. Interference detected, Karyu reported. Localized, spreading through fleet sensors. Explain! Vorth snapped. The human leaned closer to the screen. Oh, that's just the beginning. See, when you surrounded us, you locked yourself into formation. Tight formation. Predictable. Hard to maneuver quickly. Beautiful, really. If I didn't know better, I'd think you set yourselves up for us. Vorth snarled. Empty words. Maybe. Rhodes' smile widened. But Admiral, have you ever heard of poker? The crew exchanged puzzled looks. Rhodes continued conversational. It's an old Earth game. You don't win by having the strongest hand. You win by making the other guy believe you've got it. Then, right when they go all in, he snapped his fingers. You flip the table. Static crawled across the Dominion's displays. Entire wings of ships reported sudden sensor blindness. Vortha's comms crackled as secondary channels overloaded. Karyu shouted. Multiple jamming signals detected. Origin unclear. Could be phantom sources. Vorth rose, tail lashing furiously. Find them. On screen, Rhodes tilted his head, almost pitying. You can't. We planted them years ago. Funny thing about human explorers, we don't just map. We seed. Quiet little nodes, hiding in places you'd never think to check. You cornered us in your space, Admiral. But this battlefield? He spread his hands. It's ours. The bridge fell into horrified silence. Vorth felt cold realization crawl down his spine. This wasn't desperation. It was design. And the human was still smiling. The bridge of the Zyrek Dominion flagship was a cathedral of steel and silence. The alien crew moved with precision, their long fingers brushing over crystalline consoles, the glow of starlight reflecting off the Admiral's ceremonial armor. Admiral Varric stared at the holographic display that showed a single, solitary human cruiser drifting calmly in contested space. One ship, no escorts, no obvious reinforcements. To the Zyrek, it was bait, though whether bait for a trap or bait simply dangling in desperation remained the unanswered question. Varric's second-in-command, a pale, skeletal being named Drakith, hissed softly. One vessel, Admiral. Their arrogance is galling. Should we crush it now? Varrix didn't answer immediately. He had studied humans longer than most of his peers. Unlike the brash admirals of the northern fleets, he had seen humans act in war, and more unsettling, in peace. They did not fight as the Zyrek did, with predictable flanking patterns and honor-bound engagements. Humans smiled, bartered, delayed, and while you waited for their weakness to show, they rearranged the entire battlefield. The Admiral's mandibles clicked. No, Drakith. If the humans appear weak, assume they are already loading the guillotine. The bridge quieted. His words carried weight. Every Zyrek officer had heard stories, the kind passed in whispers, of fleets vanishing after underestimating humans. Across the divide. On the human cruiser HMS Resolute, Captain Elias Dane leaned back in his chair with a coffee mug in hand. The bridge smelled faintly of burnt circuits, stale caffeine, and something vaguely resembling popcorn. His crew bustled around him, efficient, alert, and unflappably calm despite the Zyrek armada staring them down. The ship's comms officer, Lieutenant Ramirez, glanced back. They're still holding formation, Captain. Not moving in, not backing off. Good, Dane said, taking a long sip of his coffee. Means they're still thinking. And if they're thinking, they're worried. A worried Zyrek is slower than rush hour traffic in Los Angeles. One of the junior officers frowned. Sir, what's Los Angeles? A place where patients went to die, Dane said, smirking. The bridge chuckled, tension bleeding off like steam from a kettle. That was Dane's gift. He wielded humor like a weapon. Where other captains barked orders, he disarmed fear with a smile and a joke that didn't quite land but made the threat feel manageable. Behind the relaxed facade, however, Dane's mind was a furnace of calculations. Every hesitation in the Zyrek fleet, every minor change in their sensor profiles, he logged it. If they lunged, the Resolute would not run. It would strike. And the Admiral would learn firsthand what humanity meant when they warned, never corner us. The debate of predators. Back on the Zyrek flagship, the officers were less convinced. They have not moved in hours! Dracus snapped, his bony fingers tapping the edge of his console. If they wished to strike, they would have. If they wished to surrender, they would have. They are frozen, Admiral, trapped. Trapped? Varix turned sharply, mandibles flaring. Is the spider trapped in its web? Or is it patient? Dracus faltered. Around the bridge, the silence thickened. Another officer spoke up, hesitant. Perhaps they are signaling. To unseen reinforcements? Or simply waiting for us to make the wrong move? Varix murmured. The Admiral recalled ancient Zyrek hunting wisdom. The most dangerous prey was not the one that fought immediately. It was the one that waited until the hunter grew tired, careless, or arrogant. And humans were nothing if not patient hunters disguised as harmless wanderers. Banter before the storm. On the Resolute, the crew's ease contrasted sharply with the Zyrek tension. Lieutenant Ramirez turned. Captain, the Zyrek fleet just shifted formation again. That's the third time this hour. They're nervous. Good, Dane replied. Let them shuffle. It's like watching someone rearrange deck chairs on the Titanic. Sir? Ramirez said, raising an eyebrow. Isn't that kind of grim? Dane grinned. Exactly the point. The bridge laughed again, but beneath the humor was a shared understanding. Humans knew their history. They remembered disasters, tragedies, mistakes, and they learned from them. Every reference, every joke Dane cracked, was another layer of psychological warfare. If the Zyrek ever deciphered the human tendency to laugh at doom, they might finally understand why humans were terrifying. Testing the waters. Varix made his decision. Send a probe. Unarmed. Let us see how they respond. The tiny drone launched from the Zyrek flagship, a bright speck darting toward the human cruiser. It carried no weapons, only sensors, its purpose to scan, to provoke, to measure reaction. On the Resolute, the sensors officer looked up. Incoming probe, Captain. No weapons detected. Cute, Dane said. Let it come. The probe inched closer, its scans painting across the Resolute's hull. Then, as it approached within 1 kilometer, a faint click echoed through the human ship. Magnetics engaged, sir, Ramirez reported. The crew watched the main display as the probe suddenly jolted off course, as if tugged by an invisible hand. It slammed into the Resolute's hull and stuck fast, pinned like a bug on a display board. On the Zyrek flagship, officers recoiled. They captured it, one whispered. How? Dracus hissed. It was shielded. Varix's mandibles clattered, but inwardly his gut churned. This was no accident. The humans hadn't destroyed the probe, they had humiliated it. Worse, they had humiliated him. The message? The probe, now glued to the Resolute's side, blinked as its data feed reversed, transmitting not to the Zyrek, but from the human ship. The alien flagship's display flickered, and suddenly Captain Dane's face appeared, smiling, coffee mug in hand. Afternoon, Admiral, Dane said cheerfully, as though greeting a neighbor over a fence. Lovely probe you sent. Bit clingy, though. We'll keep it safe for you. Don't worry, we'll give it back once we're finished. The Zyrek bridge froze. Dane leaned closer to the camera. His tone was polite, calm, almost conversational, but each word landed like a blade. By the way, Admiral, I'd advise against cornering us. We don't like it. And when we don't like something," he sipped his coffee, "we tend to redesign the whole neighborhood." The feed cut. Admiral Varix's fear. The silence on the Zyrek flagship was suffocating. Officers shifted uncomfortably, not daring to meet their admiral's eyes. Varix exhaled slowly, his chest armor rising and falling. This was confirmation of every fear he'd ever held about humans. They didn't boast strength. They didn't parade numbers. They didn't need to. Their confidence came from something deeper, an unshakable certainty that the battlefield was already theirs. Drakketh whispered, almost trembling, "Admiral, what do we do?" Varix closed his eyes. For the first time in decades of war, he felt the cold tendrils of doubt. He remembered the whispered warnings from other fleets, the ones who never returned. And he muttered words he never thought he'd speak aloud. "Never corner a human." The Kroth command chamber was tense enough to suffocate. Rows of tactical screens glowed with red vectors of encirclement, all pointing toward the lone Terran vessel suspended in the void. The alien admiral, Zurak, watched in silence, mandibles clenched so tightly the edges clicked. He had been hunting enemies for 2 centuries, and not once had prey smiled at the jaws closing around them. But the human, Commander Hale, was still smiling. "You're encircled," Zurak said, finally breaking the silence. "Surrender, and your crew will be treated efficiently." "Efficiently?" Hale tilted his head, his voice smooth, amused, as though they were discussing wine temperatures instead of annihilation. "That's one way to phrase mass imprisonment. I'd call it discourteous." The bridge officers of the Kroth hissed with offense. Hale leaned back, folding his hands with a calmness that prickled even the air. "You misunderstand," Zurak pressed. "We have over 300 warships locking on your vessel. Your communications are jammed. Escape is mathematically impossible." Hale's eyes lit with that infuriating human amusement, the same look gamblers wore when holding a royal flush while everyone else bet the farm. "Mathematically impossible? Ah, Admiral, you've just triggered my favorite human tradition, proving the math teacher wrong." A low ripple of laughter passed through the Terran crew, though their faces remained tight, disciplined. Zurak ignored the insult. "Do not mock inevitability. Even your species cannot defeat geometry. You are cornered." Hale leaned forward, tone dropping to something that carried steel under silk. "Admiral, cornering a human is rarely wise. Our history is basically one long experiment in being backed into impossible walls and kicking them down." The alien officers exchanged unsettled glances. Some whispered about Earth's legendary stubbornness, their wars where smaller human forces had endured starvation, fire, and collapse, only to claw victory from ruins. But superstition, surely. Zurak tightened his claws on the rail. "You bluff," he said. Hale gave the smallest shrug. "Maybe. But here's the trick about humans, Admiral. We don't bluff when survival's on the line. We improvise. And improvisation doesn't show up in your calculations." The silence that followed felt heavy, broken only when a Kroth tactician called out in alarm. "Admiral, their vessel's energy output, it's rising, but not in weapons systems. It's scattering." The displays bloomed with odd patterns, like flares rippling across subspace. "What are you doing?" Zurak snapped. "Buying time," Hale said cheerfully. "Oh, don't worry, Admiral, we're not arming a planet buster. We're just rearranging the furniture." The aliens scrambled to recalibrate sensors. The Terran ship flickered in and out, distorted, almost blurred. "Cloaking? No, gravitational warping," one officer hissed. "Impossible at that scale." "Impossible," Hale echoed, savoring the word. "You keep using it. Cute." The trap began unraveling before Zurak's eyes. The human vessel split, not physically, but holographically, into 6 ghost signatures, each broadcasting chaotic energy. The Kroth fleet faltered, weapons hesitating between targets. "Fire on all!" Zurak roared. Plasma lances cut across the void, shattering illusions, but each shot revealed nothing. Then, with terrifying grace, the real Terran vessel slid between firing arcs and lined up at the heart of the alien formation. How? Zurak snarled. Hale's grin sharpened. Simple misdirection. Every magician learns it before pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Difference is, Admiral, my rabbit bites. The human ship's hull unfolded like a puzzle box. Panels shifted, revealing rail cannons, missile pods, and something stranger, a pulse that distorted sensors every time it hummed. They were hiding armaments. A Croth officer gasped. That ship wasn't exploratory at all. Hale tapped his console, voice almost playful. Exploratory? Oh, we were exploring, Admiral. Exploring how far we could push patience. Yours and ours. The Terran vessel struck. Not with the brute force barrage expected, but with scalpel precision. Their first salvo disabled the communication relays of 3 enemy dreadnoughts. Their second volley shredded propulsion systems of 2 more. No kill shots. Not yet. Aliens panicked, their formations collapsing as they scrambled to compensate. Zurak bellowed orders, but the fleet that had been a perfect vice was now a stumbling mob. You could destroy us all, Zurak growled, forcing his tone steady. Why hold back? Hale's gaze turned cold, humor thinning to razor edge. Because, Admiral, humans know the value of demonstration. If I annihilate you now, only your fleet sees the lesson. If I leave you limping home, the entire galaxy hears the story. Which is scarier, do you think? The weight of his words sank in. Even seasoned warriors shifted uneasily at the realization. They were being made into an example. One alien officer whispered, "This is calculated humiliation." And Hale, hearing it, smiled faintly. Exactly. See? You're catching on. The tactical screens bled red. Nearly half the fleet was crippled without a single Terran kill. The psychological wound ran deeper than the physical. Zurak, pride cracking, slammed his claws against the console. This changes nothing. We still outnumber you. Outnumber, sure. Outthink? Not a chance. Hale's voice softened, almost sympathetic. Admiral, let me share a secret. When humans are outnumbered, that's when we get creative. You've only met our creativity on polite settings. For the first time in his long career, Zurak felt fear bleed into his bones. He saw now that the humans hadn't been trapped at all, they had been waiting. Admiral, Hale said, his tone shifting once again to that infuriating cordiality. I'd recommend retreat while your pride still fits through the door. Because if you push us further, the demonstration becomes irreversible. The alien bridge was silent. Officers looked to their admiral, their mandibles twitching with dread. Never corner a human, one muttered. The phrase spread in hushed tones across the command deck, as though it were prophecy. Zurak lowered his head, fury battling survival instinct. To withdraw was shame. To stay was suicide. And the human smile promised he knew exactly how this story would end. Mark my words, the Admiral hissed. The galaxy will not bow to Earth. Hale's smile faded into something colder, something ancient. Admiral, we're not asking it to bow. We're just reminding it, we don't kneel either. The Terran vessel pulsed once more, energy spiking, weapons locked, not firing, but ready. A statement in metal and silence. Zurak's claws trembled. He gave the only order left. Disengage. The Croth fleet began to peel away, wounded and dishonored. Hale leaned back in his chair, expression returning to that polite mask. Well, that was fun, he said lightly. Somebody log this as a successful diplomatic encounter. His crew laughed, tension spilling out in sharp relief. But beneath the humor, every one of them knew the truth. The trap wasn't fully sprung yet. This was just the opening act. And somewhere, deep in the Admiral's chamber, Zurak whispered the warning that would ripple across the stars. Never corner a human. The alien fleet had committed. Columns of warships stretched across the starfield, engines burning bright as they closed around the lone human vessel. The trap was set, they had coordinated it for weeks. Hundreds of vessels, each bristling with weapons capable of razing continents, locked their firing solutions onto the ancient warship that drifted quietly before them. The commanders told themselves victory was inevitable. Numbers would crush relics. And yet, inside every alien bridge, there lingered unease. The human ship had not retreated. It had not powered down. It simply waited. On the bridge of the Harbinger of Dawn, Captain Sereth of the Varen Armada clenched his mandibles. Targeting confirmed. Fire on my mark! But his crew hesitated. The human vessel's posture was unnerving, its hull dark but unmarred, its engines glowing faintly like a predator's eyes in the dark. Captain, one officer began. Why does it not maneuver? Why does it not even attempt to? Silence, Sereth snapped. It is a broken relic. Fear is unbecoming. He raised his claw to give the final command. A soft transmission crackled across every fleet's channel. Gentle beings. A calm human voice spoke, its tone polite yet cutting. Before you fire, allow me to correct your assumption. You believe you've trapped us. You believe escape is impossible. Both are true for you. The voice belonged to Commander Elias Vayer, tactician of the Harbinger Eternal. His words carried not as a threat, but as fact, wrapped in a civility more terrifying than any shouted warning. Gasps, growls, and disbelieving murmurs echoed across alien bridges. Some commanders demanded comms be severed, but none dared cut the channel. Curiosity rooted them to silence. You were warned not to corner humans, Elias continued. You ignored it. Now you will learn why such advice was given with sincerity. The alien fleets moved anyway. Pride demanded it. Sereth snarled and gave the order. Fire! 1,000 beams and torpedoes cut across the void, converging upon the lone human ship. The barrage lit the darkness in violent color, the kind of firepower meant to obliterate moons. The storm hit. And then it bent. The blasts curved, split, and scattered, as though space itself rejected their path. Explosions blossomed harmlessly across empty void, their fury redirected. Only fragments struck the Harbinger Eternal, flaring against its shields like sparks against stone. Panic spread instantly. Impossible! Sereth roared. The fire was true! Sir, their hull is displacing trajectories, space around them is warping. Elias's voice cut back into the channel, steady as ever. Your weapons cannot touch us. Did you truly think, after centuries of war, that humans would not learn to shape the battlefield itself? The aliens scrambled to adjust tactics. Some ships pulled back, others charged forward, desperate to close the distance. The formation that once looked like a noose now resembled panic writ large across the stars. Inside the Harbinger Eternal, Elias gave quiet commands. Vector 8. Release Veil. At his order, the darkness peeled away. Ships emerged, dozens then hundreds, decloaking around the Eternal. They were not relics. They were pristine, waiting, their hulls gleaming with Earth's insignia etched in quiet defiance. An entire armada had hidden in the shadows, patient and silent, until the moment to strike had come. On Sereth's bridge, despair crept in. They had a fleet, an entire fleet, waiting. How could we not detect them? Captain, his officer whispered, trembling. We thought we trapped them. It is we who are trapped. The realization spread across every channel. What had seemed like overwhelming numbers now flipped in an instant. Humans had not brought one ship as bait, they had brought the fleet that would end the war. Elias's voice returned, softer now, almost pitying. Understand, this was never about survival. This was demonstration. You will return with this memory, if you survive long enough to retreat. Others must know the cost of ignoring warnings. Then, the politeness slipped into steel. Harbinger fleet, commence! The void erupted. Human warships surged forward, engines blazing cold fire. Their weapons did not roar, they whispered destruction. Lances of precision energy pierced alien shields as if they were paper. Torpedoes skipped across folded space, appearing inside enemy formations, detonating with surgical violence. Alien vessels burned. Some exploded instantly, others tore apart slowly, their death spirals casting wreckage across the void. Command channels filled with screams, desperate orders, and static. Yet the humans moved with calm inevitability, every maneuver calculated, every strike deliberate. They were not fighting, they were executing. On the Harbinger Eternal, Elias stood unshaken, watching the enemy collapse. His officers carried out their duties in silence, their professionalism chilling in its efficiency. A junior officer, pale and wide-eyed, finally whispered, "Sir, they're trying to flee." Elias's gaze sharpened. "Of course they are. But we warned them, didn't we?" He leaned forward, his voice colder than the vacuum outside. "No one corners a human and escapes. Close the net." The fleeing ships found every route sealed. Human destroyers cut off the escape corridors with ruthless precision. Interceptors darted between the larger vessels, disabling engines with pinpoint strikes. Escape pods were captured, not destroyed. Humans preferred witnesses to corpses when sending a message. Saratha's ship, once leading the charge, now limped on half power, shield shredded, hull bleeding fire. His crew begged him to surrender. But before he could, the human voice returned one final time. "Captain Sarath," Elias said, calling him by name, "take your ship. Crawl back to your high command. Tell them this truth: you may outnumber us, outgun us, even outlast us. But if you ever corner humanity again, you will never leave that battlefield alive." The comms cut. Silence lingered. Then, across the starfield, the alien fleet broke apart, those few who survived limping into retreat, dragging their shame behind them. The Harbinger Eternal and its fleet stood unscathed, guardians of a truth that would ripple through the galaxy. Humans did not just fight wars. They ended them. And they never, ever, let their hunters escape.